Well, get ready to say goodbye to your favorite sprinkled donuts like these. The senator and I already ate one this morning. They're delicious. We feel fantastic. But that is because the FDA has anything to do with it. They're getting rid of donuts like these. The agency now regulating America's intake of trans fats for at such high levels, the amount needed to make something as small as a sprinkle on your donut may be banned. But doesn't the FDA have more important things to do than regulate sprinkles? Let's ask the author of The Food Police, economist Jason Luss. Nice to see you this morning, Jason.
Hi, Clayton. Thanks for having me on.
Now, let me play devil's advocate for a moment, because what critics are saying is, look, the FDA should step in and do this because, look, that's the government's responsibility to protect citizens against toxic chemicals, and that's what trans fats are. What do you say?
Well, actually, the FDA already has done something. When the evidence began to emerge that trans fats were pretty unhealthy and risky, the FDA required labeling, required food companies to add a label with the amount of trans fats. And what we've seen is, as a consequence of that label, is that food companies have already voluntarily cut back on the amount of trans fats, in part due to consumer pressures. And if you look at the data, consumption of trans fats has fallen pretty dramatically as a response to those labels. So it's a little unclear now why they're coming in and adding this ban on top of a policy that was already effective.
What I was also saying to people is, look, you're just not responsible, right? If you think you can't eat one of these every day and you know that you're going to have some other kind of health issues, if you're eating donuts, that's your main part of your diet, you're probably going to have some issues. What the government is saying is, look, you're not responsible for your own health, so we're going to make sure we're going to step in and be responsible for you. Is that what they're saying?
Well, there's a tendency to look at this kind of policy and say, hey, what's the big deal? A ban on sprinkles on donuts. It's just not that big a deal. But I think the way you want to look at that is to say that, if the government can involve itself in such small, minutia decisions of our daily lives as to whether we want to eat sprinkles or not, that's really not much respect for the citizens' choices. And if they're willing to ban those small decisions, what kind of respect will they give citizens in the larger decisions in our lives about where to work or where to live or some of the things that really matter to us?
Here's some other items that have small amounts of trans fats in them. Here, take a look at your screen. Some crackers, some frozen pizzas, popcorn, even coffee creamers, canned frosting. If you're making some cookies once a year with your kids on the holidays, that'll be banned.